Welcome to the Moonflower Path podcast. This space is for the highly sensitive, the creatives, the earth-loving, the caregivers, the weirdos, the feelers, the change makers, and dreamers of the world. Here, we are all about guiding you to trust your body intuition so you can find home and shift culture. Through the exploration of somatic practice, self-care, and seasonal ritual, my hope is that you will be inspired to be in harmony with yourself and in a dance with the earth. I'm your host, Carolyn, and I'm so honored and grateful to be here with you today. Hello, gentle listener, and welcome back to the podcast. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name is Carolyn. Lovely to have you here. Thank you for sharing this time with me. And if it's not your first time here, welcome back. I am sat here on the floor of my office space / also the room in which I practice my own self-care. And I have a cozy cup of a new herbal concoction that I've recently acquired. I didn't make it, in all honesty, but I just might actually try and make my own. But it's a mix of dandelion, red clover, and burdock. And it's actually quite interesting. And it feels very apropos, is that the right expression? To today's episode, where I wanted to talk a little bit about flower magic and why this might be a really nice time to connect with flowers, how you might do that, and why it would be supportive for you on your self-care journey as the sensitive, creative, earth-loving moonflower that you are. So hopefully you've got yourself set up in a cozy spot to listen to this episode, or you're out on a walk, or you're driving in the car and you're able to just let yourself really receive these words. And my hope is that you can explore for yourself in the coming days and the coming weeks. So let's get into it. So flowers have much to teach us, and this is a beautiful and a perfect time to be connecting with flowers. It is like full-on spring right now in the Northern Hemisphere if you are listening to this episode as it's coming out. But if you are not listening to this episode as it's coming out and it's like the middle of winter, then this episode will still hopefully be able to help and support you, which is really, that's what we're here for. Entering into the warmer months of the year as a highly sensitive person, as a creative and earth-loving individual, can feel amazing, exciting, hopeful, really great. At the same time, it also has the potential to be overwhelming, to feel like a lot, to be filled with this need or desire to be busy, to create, to soak up the seasons for all it's worth. And it's like this sometimes tricky balance to find between, I know that I'm still somebody who needs a lot of stillness, needs lowness, needs a lot of space, but it's also like it's spring, or it's gonna be summer soon, and I need to do the things because that's just what you do. Or maybe that's partly what I want to do, but then you quickly might realize that whoa, okay, I need some extra support here. I need to pause. I need to find stillness. I need to rest, whatever. And I believe that flowers can be a really helpful companion for all of that, which is why I wanted to publish this episode at this time, as we're past Beltane and summer is like kind of already around the corner. Summer solstice is on June 21st, which is the first day of summer, and it's like the peak of the cycle. And I wanted to offer you this episode as a way for you to feel equipped during this season and actually be able to use the natural world to help support you. So I titled this episode Flower Magic because there is this sense of undescribable, inexplicable sparkliness to connecting with flowers. Magic can be defined as the act of co-creating with the universe in order to enact change. I would expand that definition to in order to be able to feel deeper connected, to feel supported, to feel inspired, to feel empowered. I think that magic is a conduit to connecting back to our internal wisdom and our internal power. And flowers have the ability to do that. I first started cultivating a relationship with flowers in an intentional way when I started getting really passionate about learning more about the flowers that are around my local environment during a season that was really overwhelming. During the summer of 2021, I went into the summer being like, this is going to be the best summer ever. I've got like so many yoga classes I'm going to be teaching, outdoor classes, live stream classes. It's going to be great. This is what I like have always wanted, is to like be a full-time yoga teacher. And I was very quickly hit with the realization about, I don't know, halfway through the summer that I had way overbooked myself. I had gone like way too deep into the shoulds around how busy a yoga teacher should be in order to call themselves a yoga teacher. And it was a lot, and it was incredibly overwhelming. And that's not really the point of this episode, but the point of what I'm trying to get at is that it was at that time that flowers just like happened to begin to speak to me. There is a trail that I walk with my dog Nala in the woods near our house, and I do the same route every single day. And it was during the summer that walk became so important. It was the time that I was able to like disconnect from all the things, and that I was able to just like get lost in the beauty of nature, be with my dog who always brings me so much joy. And it was on this walk that I began to actually notice the flowers that pop up. And because I was doing this walk every single day as the season went on, I began to notice which flowers were popping up when. And I started actually being able to like get out of my head and get into my body, like getting down on the floor, because I was just so captivated by the colors, by the textures. And it was it's like unexplainable, the connection that I began to feel with that forest that I now hold so near and dear to my heart. And then fast forward the following spring, I then was like, I knew that this was something that was like really captivating me, and that I found so much support from the previous season. And it was one of the things that actually like got me through the summer, was turning to the beauty and the calm and the joy that flowers were able to offer me during a time I was just like really busy, and it was really overwhelming. Like it doesn't have to be any more melodramatic than that. Like it was a lot. And the flowers just happened to catch my attention, and I don't think that that's by accident. And so then the following, leading up to spring, I then was like, okay, like I definitely want to really focus in on this, really intentionally learn more about how I can continue to maintain this fulfilling relationship that I have with the plants and the flowers around where I live. And so I did all this research on edible flowers, on flowers that flowers that were like native to where we live, flowers that could actually help the local ecosystem, because it was around this season of planning my garden that I also happened to read the book How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. How to Do Nothing, Resisting the Attention Economy. And this book is about the ways in which we can win back our time and our attention and our lives and our agency by dropping out of the attention economy that is always trying to pull our attention away from ourselves and what is important. And the way in which the author suggests doing that, amongst many things, is to reconnect with your local environment, which, like, that is the way that instead of the urge that we might have when feeling overwhelmed by the state of the world, which is to just like, I just want to move out in the middle of nowhere off the grid and start like my own little tiny bubble of a world because the world that I live in is too difficult. That's actually not the solution. And that's not going to bring us to where we actually need to be collectively if we all just individually just check out. And that the ways in which we actually can enact change in a way that feels fulfilling for ourselves as well as for the whole is to actually be in it, be in the hard stuff, be in the challenging state of the world, but stand in it from a place of hope. And the way that we can find that hope and that inspiration is by planting our feet in the earth in which we live. So by coming back to our local environment and learning more about the plants, the animals, the people, connecting with like your local community, your local environment, your local land. And that was a really inspiring message for me to learn. And so I got like all in on learning more about edible flowers and the flowers that just happen to natively grow around this area, learn more about the species of animals, of birds, of bugs, of butterflies, of bees that live in this area, and how can I actually be like a good citizen, a good kin, a good neighbor to those species, to those animal kin, by planting plants that will actually help support them. And that it was through this relationship of learning more about the flowers and then actually like hunting down and like finding those flowers and beginning to plant them in the garden around my home. And then actually seeing the butterflies and the birds and the bees come, that it was just like I felt a deeper fire inside of myself to actually do better and be better. And it all started with flowers. And that like connection, right, that I just said, that connection, that fire of being able to do better and be better, that brings it back to that definition of magic that I mentioned, right, of the ways in which we can practice magic. And why we do that is to be able to connect back to our own innate power. And for myself, flowers was one of the ways in which I found that. So right now, at this time, is a beautiful time to explore and cultivate a relationship with flowers. There is so much that we can learn from all the different flowers that are around us. there's like so much symbolism, so many metaphors that can be explored, so much inspiration that you can find as a creative soul when it comes to connecting with flowers, to notice the different times that different flowers come up, the different relationship that different flowers have with each other, the matching and cacophony of colors and the flowers that grow between other flower or beside other flowers and the way that their colors mix. I'm reading Braiding Sweetgrass right now, and she talks about Robin Wall Kimmerer is the name of the author, and she talks about the relationship that goldenrod and aster flowers have, and how the purple and the yellow of them growing side by side just seems like the most perfect combination of colors, and that they just happen to grow at the same time. There just must be some significance in that. And so the more that you actually open your eyes up to the flowers around you, the more you can feel a deeper connection to the land on which you live, as well as I believe that when you create a deeper relationship with your natural environment, that the deeper your connection can be with yourself. You learn more about your inquisitiveness, about your curiosity. You begin to trust in those intuitive nudges of, oh, I feel really lit up and really passionate about this thing in relationship with flowers. I'm going to follow that and see where that leads me, like my story and my example around learning more about edible flowers and edible plants, as well as plants for my local environment. Because in turn, what has happened is that I have been able to use just that little nudge of intuition when it comes to learning more about flowers to actually in turn come here to you and create this podcast episode and create a whole bunch of other self-care offerings that are in the Moonflower Path community space. And so it starts with following the curiosity, following the inquisitiveness when it comes to connecting with flowers. And in turn, the hope is that instead of feeling overwhelmed and unresourced during the spring and during the summer, the hope is that you can then use the bounty of this season, the bounty that is spring, the bounty that is summer, and in turn actually find support from that bounty, support from the flowers that are coming up. Instead of, for me at times during the overwhelming summer that I had, I just wanted to shut all of the curtains, make it as dark as possible, as quiet as possible, and not have to deal with anything. Instead, it was an intentional decision to get outside, to be in the sun, to sit amongst the flowers and just watch and be with them and listen. So I feel like I've gotten a little rambly, and I hope that you kind of followed that thread with me about why connecting with flowers can be so helpful and how it can actually be supportive, how you can find a deeper connection with yourself and the world around you, and that they can become allies, that flowers can become allies and friends on the path that you walk in your life. So I want to end, as I typically like to do, on a practical note and send you away with a few actual practical, tangible ways that you can cultivate your own relationship with flowers, that you can actually start your own flower magic practice. So one of the ways that you could do this is through essential oils. So there are many different essential oils that you can explore, that you can play with, that you can work with, that come from many different types of flowers. And so, it just takes a little Google, right? And to learn which flower essential oils will actually be able to help you with what thing you might be looking for added support with. And in the same kind of tangent as that, you could explore flower essences. So the difference between essential oils and flower essences is that essential oils are a natural oil that are typically obtained by distilling a specific ingredient. And in contrast, flower essences are the opposite of that. So flower essences don't actually contain any physicality of the flower. So the way that flower essences are made is that you actually place the flower in a bowl of water, and then that water is then put into a bottle with some sort of alcohol-based thing that's going to be able to make it keep. And the concoction, the flower essence, actually holds the energetic imprint of that flower. And flower essences are said to be really, really helpful for highly sensitive folk because it's a lot less overwhelming in comparison to working with essential oils. So that's something that you could explore, read more up on. And then another way that I really like to play and practice flower magic is through baking and cooking. So I talked a little bit more, I talked about my passion and my interest in learning more about edible flowers. And the more that you play with them, the more you begin to learn like, oh, this flower actually tastes really good in this type of dish. And these colors look really good in this type of dish or this baked good. And it's just so much fun to play with flowers in the kitchen and to actually learn. Like one of the things that I am recently learning is that there's a lot more flowers that grow in the wild that we can eat than not. I was on a walk just this past week, and there's this app that I have on my phone called Seek, and it uses your camera where you can take a picture of a flower or a plant or whatever in nature, and it'll tell you what it is. And it was such a fun practice and being like, oh my gosh, there are all of these flowers and plants that I have walked by countless times that I didn't even know I could actually be, that are like here for us, for the animals, for us to be able to eat and to nourish ourselves. We have this relationship with the natural world. I do, at least. I guess I shouldn't say we, but I do. And I think a lot of us in North America have this relationship with the natural world that is like a fearful one, where we're raised like, don't eat the poisonous berries, don't touch the things because you could get a rash or you could get a stomach ache or you could get killed for all we know. And that's the relationship that I, for the most part of my life, have had when it comes to eating plants that grow in the wild. And how am I supposed to do right by the earth? How am I supposed to want to, quote, save the earth? How am I supposed to want to actually fight for this planet and fight for the local environment if the relationship that I have with the local environment is a fearful one? But the more you learn about your local environment, the more you learn that the natural world is here to support us. It is here to add to our lives. And the more you learn that, the more you actually want to continue the life of these plant spirits, these plant friends. And that's just like it just like lights me up. It gets me so passionate because if we're looking for ways for us to like flip the switch on like, yeah, I actually want to be a better steward for this land, that is one of the ways that we can find that instead of feeling shamed or guilted into recycling more. Like, it's like, that is one of the ways that flowers have been magical for me, at least. So that's one of the ways that you could connect with flower magic, is learn more about the plants that you can actually eat around your house, specifically the flowers, because they come up at different times and they really like you could really see them on your walks because they're like this like bright color, this bright white, this bright yellow that just like catches your eye, and then you learn more about it. Another way that you could connect with flower magic is making art with flowers. I've had such a fun time with pressing flowers and doing different crafts and making different art pieces with flowers. They're just so pretty. Like, I feel like I don't even need to explain this. Like, they're just so pretty that, like, why would you not want to play with them and make art with them? And little tangent, little caveat here when it comes to picking flowers and playing with flowers is please ensure that you are harvesting no more than half of the flowers that you see, and that you are taking time to actually ask permission. This is an indigenous practice that I'm learning more about. And if you're like, why, like, I don't understand, how do I ask permission? This is where you put into practice your intuitive connection, that you have to slow down when it comes to harvesting plants in the wild in order to be able to put in that time to ask permission. If it's challenging to harvest, that is usually a no. Or if you harvest and then what you harvest actually is like it wilts really quickly, or I don't know, like anything, like you notice something like, oh, that just didn't quite feel right, then that's a no. But trust in the yeses, and then you'll get to know what the answer feels and looks like when you begin to ask permission. But get curious about that. So just be mindful of how much you're harvesting and how you're harvesting flowers. And so if today's episode really lit you up, you thought, wow, this definitely sounds like something that I want to learn more about, that I want to play with. Flower magic is definitely something that I want to add to my self-care toolkit. Then we have a workshop happening in the Moonflower Path community space next week on Friday, May 26th. This is our Beltane fireside gathering where we are going to be making flower crowns. And in the membership, there's also a guided walking meditation where you are encouraged to go outside with this like cozy spring playlist and actually pick your flowers for maybe your spiritual altar, for your creative space in your room, or for this flower crown making ritual. So if you're interested in taking part in that, we'd really, really love to have you there if you're interested. And if you're already a Moonflower Fireside member, I look forward to making flower crowns with you in that gathering. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I have been trying to come to you a bit more unscripted, which is feeling like, in all honesty, a very vulnerable practice. And it's feeling like I'm coming to you a little bit more like rambly and kind of all over the place. But I hope that just me showing up as me in the way that I just naturally speak, and the tangents that I take, and the like fluctuations of like speaking really quickly, being really passionate, and then trying not to cut out all of the ums and pauses and breaks in the way that I speak, because that's just the way that I am. Hopefully this is landing okay. And this also can act as a way to give you permission as well to just be you and to show up as you, because really that's all we know how to be, right? So wishing you a wonderful rest of your day. Hopefully you can get outside and connect with the flowers around your house. And I look forward to connecting with you again very soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Moonflower Path podcast. I'm your host, Carolyn, and ways that you can find more support from me and this cozy community are all found in the show notes. Please consider rating, reviewing, and sharing this podcast with a friend. Those are the best ways to show your support for this free and accessible resource. Wishing you a gentle rest of your day, and I look forward to connecting again with you very soon.